Commissioner, the reason why I guess I wanted to have some time to have more discussion on it, as we discussed it last time, and if it was possible to get through some deadlines of when we had to notice things and having a committee put together. We don't have a lot of items that are going on right now as far as buildings being built, bond issues taking place, things like that. And I thought a lot about, after our discussion, I thought a lot about, you know, when is the best time to try to educate the public? And I know that timing is always an issue. And I guess I felt that if we let this timing go, if we weren't able to put something forth with the public, and I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to pass the first time. They may have to chew it around a little bit. But my thought process was we don't have major elections being focused on right now. We do need to look to putting moving people or moving some departments. We have some facilities that are pretty sad. And I just felt that if we waited longer and continued to kick the can down the road, we're missing an opportunity. And I know that Ms. Wamstead talked about the rule or the legislation and the process that we have to go through. But when things stay fresh in people's mind when it is fresh, and they tend to forget and they tend to overlook things as a society. And I just felt really strong that if we didn't try, if we didn't put this opportunity forward, we could miss out on something. Is there an opportunity to to educate the public? Yes. Does it take a lot of time and energy from us as commissioners and other people that would help support us? Yes. But right now we're not competing against the time of, well, there's a big election taking place, so there's a lot of disparity amongst people thinking about what they support, what they don't support. I recognize that a lot of people don't have a clear understanding of what it means when we start looking towards this type of process. And we need to work on education at the local level. But I really feel that, 6 months here, a year there, that just continues to put us behind, and we continue to go backwards. And so I felt strongly that we needed to have further discussion. It is doable, I believe, with moving forward and having a committee and getting information out and maybe having some public meetings, doing some things where a person can explain the whole process for those that may come to the polls. Right now, today, they're having a vote on a gymnasium at the elementary school in Larimore. I don't know what the turnout is going to be for that, but I think they've done a good job. Well, show the school, show the building. I mean, the old gym is the old gym, and that's where they have lunch in the elementary school, and not elementary school, excuse me, junior high. And so we just need to think more methodically, and I know that thank you for giving me this opportunity to ramble on. And I know that you think that it may be a dead cause, but I think anytime we start putting something towards the public that could help them understand what it is to get into this type of situation, and help them understand that this isn't taking any, home rule is not taking any rights away from our public, but helping our public by gathering some tax base, or users coming into the county to help pay for something, instead of it always being a situation of the taxpayers. And I know that we have many taxpayers who may not be in support of it, but then we have a lot of people that don't live in They don't pay taxes on their homes. They live in rented units. And that's getting to be some of our seniors as well. Some of the big ads I've heard lately about people moving into assisted living or townhomes, you don't have to pay any taxes, is one guy's ad in that. And that's true. If you don't own the facility you're in and you don't have to pay any taxes, who cares? You know, I mean, they look at what their income, what their rental payment is, or their lease payment, but they don't look at the taxes. We have many, many apartment buildings in our communities, and they continue to grow, which amazes me. If you look out at the western part of or southern part of Grand Forks, where's everybody coming from? And I understand we have a major university and we have lots of the public that want to live in do apartment living. But I just don't know if that's going to be enough to push it over saying, oh my God, my tax bill is this. I would much prefer to be straightforward with the public and to really try to educate them using multiple forms of media so that they can understand. Home rule is not a bad thing. It was looked upon as a very bad thing years ago when the last time that we talked about it. The media outlets were very active in interviewing the commissioners, and maybe some misinformation got in the hands of people. Coffee Clutches talked about it and were very unsupportive. I think we saw the numbers much higher in previous years than we did in the last year that we did the vote. And I guess my final thing is, what do we have to lose? What do we have to lose? If we go through the process and it doesn't pass the first time, what do we have to lose? We have to continue to be diligent, but so many times this last year, when we were budgeting for 2022, we had the discussion, well, you know, we're almost up to these mills and we can't do anything else. And, you know, we're going to have to watch it. Well, you know, my fear is we've already seen a part of a portion of our parking facility have a little crumbling, which is unfortunate when it's as new as it is. We know that we're doing a lot of backpedaling when it comes to some of our facilities to keep them in shape so that they can continue to be usable. But at some point, something's going to happen and we're going to be standing here going, okay, what are we going to do now? And so I just feel that we need to be proactive. We need to move forward with this situation or this process of home rule. And I don't want to play the what do we have to lose, but at the end of the day, when the votes come out, when we do the voting and see where we're at, that gives us a gauge of, okay, what did we do right? What do we have to do now? And I don't want to be a betting person, but what do we have to lose? We've got some facilities that we need to get ready, and we're not ready by any means. Whether it be law enforcement or needing additional prison space or needing additional space for the sheriff's department or for juvenile justice. And those are the things we know about right now. We don't know about other things that could happen. Altru Hospital or Altru Health Systems, they didn't know that the 23rd, 22nd of December, whatever it was in December, that all of a sudden the whole building was going to shift down. They didn't know. They had no plan. And they were already in the process of, you know, putting together a new facility. So I'll be quiet but that's why I asked that we could have this discussion, and that I just feel that the time is right and we need to move forward with things or not. The hubbub is just not going, you know, there's money at the state legislature. They've left $450 million on the table with this COVID money. And I just heard that in the committee meeting, and they've got more COVID money coming down. I just think that the time is right that we need to have this discussion so that we can try to get people more educated on home rule and what the pros and the cons are. Thank you.
Well, I'm taking the opposite approach. I think it would be poor policy to proceed half prepared, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Ms. Nelson, she has to have this on the ballot by April 1st. That's about 4 months away. We don't even have a charter. We don't even have the group together that would make the charter. We have Christmas coming up. Nothing gets done in December. People are gone. I'll be gone. There's going to be people on this group gone. I don't think you can go out and educate the public until you have the charter in your hand to talk to them about it, what it actually says or what we're going to try to accomplish. And that's not going to be until probably the 1st of March. That would be if things went perfect. And I'll give you a good example. Today, Mr. Ford and I were going to have a meeting with a gentleman who knows a tremendous amount about home rule. Well, that meeting was postponed. And that's going to happen continually when we get this thing going. Nothing's going to go perfectly. And I submit that even going perfectly, we aren't going to have enough time. And that's not going to happen. And I have no intention of doing this twice. Now, the school district, they were able to run that election a second time. But what they could sell a second time was, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the amount of tax dollars they were asking for was about 75% less than they did on the first ballot. And that's what sold it. We're not going to be able to do that. It's just going to be the same issue coming forward. So I think we need to do a good job, give the people that we get on this commission time to put it together and do it right the first time. Yes, Mr.
Well, I would have liked to see it in an off election like June. But why couldn't we do it in the congressional off mid-year election? Sure, there's going to be contentious, there's going to be a lot of ads going and so on. But that gives us till fall. I'd hate to wait 2 years because we do have to get started on some of these buildings. And if we gear ourselves up to do it for a vote at that point, we might be able to have a plan on what buildings we really need by that time. And we're behind the 8 ball already, by the way. After our last meeting, it was either the next day or within 2 days, I happened to be listening to a radio station I never choose to listen to. And holy smokes, the county wants to do this because all they want to do is raise taxes. And that was the host. That wasn't the caller. You know, that's the misinformation stuff that's going to be out there. So we really are going to have to have a good campaign on that. And I was thinking on the way in today, how are we going to pick the board? You know, and as much as I really would love to see it on that primary, because the people who vote in the primary have a reason to be voting in primaries. They probably pay more attention to issues and so on, or else they're just, I don't know why they vote in the primary and not others. But the general election is tougher because you really have to educate a lot, because otherwise the people who haven't paid attention and are just there to vote for congressman or whatever they're there to vote for just would automatically say no to something they don't understand. So it's a big task either way. But I just think I wouldn't want it to go past the fall really, but I kind of think that might be worth doing that approach, because I think we have to do this. I've talked to individuals out in my home area. Well, that sounds pretty good. The idea that everybody in the county can help pay, and it's not just on the people who, these are farmers, huh? So there you go, they own the land. And the people who know houses in town too. So I think we can get it done, but I'm a little concerned about the rush also. But anyway, that's my thought.
I'm not overly concerned about the building project because the correctional center can proceed with, we can use the mill levy. So, and that's going to have to be done, or we're going to have to continue to move on that, or we're going to have big problems out there within a year or so.
Yeah, sure.
So that project will continue on pace, in my opinion. So I would hate to wait 2 years, but it doesn't really bother me. So,
What are we gonna do with juvenile detention?
that'll be
Looking
the
at the
same.
plan for that?
Well, that's in our plan, that when we had the meeting, maybe you weren't at that meeting, but they've got our architects were tasked with trying to put that building as part of that out there and keep it within, I forget the number, 30 million somewhere, they have a number. So juvenile detention would have to be put there, and then they would spend the balance of the money on adding on to the correctional center.
And the city giving us a reprieve on the sheriff's area?
Right, that was what the mayor said, yeah. Of course, the sheriff is here, and we do want to move him as quickly as we can. I'm not gonna use that as a reason to let him sit there for 6, 7 years. And if we can, I think we have to take each piece of the puzzle as it comes along. The first piece is the correctional center / detention.
Yeah, I agree with
And
that.
that project is underway, so.
So what would be the optimal timing of bringing this to the election?
But I think we can chew on it a little bit. We can talk about the fall. I still think the primary is the better time. Not this primary, the primary in 2 years. There's no way it's gonna go in this primary. I just don't see it
And what?
in this primary. Everybody, we're gonna have some help from the chamber, any number of groups that can help us. And we can't expect that they're gonna drop everything and immediately start on this project because we've expedited it. So I think we have to give them an opportunity to first of all, meet with us and get involved.
Do we have, I guess this is a question for Haley. Do we have, so can we start a committee now, or do we have to have a certain timeline of how long before, once they're gathered together? When we talk about the document, it really seems like there's a lot of templates of home rule out there by other counties that have already done it. So I don't feel in reviewing home rule charters that we're talking about starting from scratch.
We aren't, but our group is starting from scratch, and they have the opportunity or right or whatever to draft it in any way they might deem fit. Now they can look at, there's 3 or 4 or 5 of those charters out there that they can look and pick one or maybe work all of them into one, but that's gonna take a long time.
They've got a year to, if we appoint a commission, they've got a year to come up with a charter, and we have 2 years to bring it to a vote.
Well, we'd have to tell them, we'd like them to come up with it quicker than a
I
year.
understand it, but it's not like once we start the clock, we've got 4 months to finish.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, just to answer Commissioner Peach's question, what Commissioner Engen indicated is correct. So hypothetically speaking, if the board decided to proceed today, you would have 60 days to appoint a charter commission from today. Then that commission has 1 year to draft and bring back to the board the proposed charter. Then after it's submitted to the commission has at least 60 days and no more than 2 years to submit it to the electors for a vote. So essentially, if you took the longest of every option, it would be 3 years and 60 days from the date that you initiate the process.
Well, it seems to me that what we should do is each of us think of a couple of names
I've got one.
in the next.
I've got 2 actually.
Yeah,
Uh-oh,
we,
I've got one.
well, we want to think about
you're
it,
trying to take over the commission, are you?
but there are certain people in this community that can help us.
And they're really interested in it too.
Yeah, but they are in positions where they can provide assistance to us. So I think what we should do is that our next meeting, everybody come up with 2 or 3 names. And maybe some of them will be the same.
Sure.
And then we'll probably have to have more than, we might have to have 10 names to get 5 people, or 7 people. More than that, I don't know. Some will turn us down because of the time.
And I've talked quite a bit since we had our last 2 people out in the community about home rule. And there's a lot of interest out there. There really is. Very interested in doing it and making it work. So, I mean, these are the kind of people you need that, have been exposed to it, know how to advertise it, educate people, and to get it. So,
Yeah, I think those that take an interest in it are going to see the benefits of it to
yeah,
the community as a whole. The problem is going to be to educate the people that aren't overly interested in it. Does that fit with what I'm talking about, Ms. Wormstead?
The timeline, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
What are my thoughts? Well, I've given it a lot of thought, and I say, let's get on it, and let's get it done. To me, it's natural that if you have 6 months to do something, wait till the 5th or the 6th month to start it, or get on it, or really get focused on it, and I think it's doable, we can do it.
We got an April 1 deadline though.
Do we have to go 40 days or whatever? I mean, I know what the deadline is for having to have the information ready to be on the ballot. But when you ask a group to come together, what's the minimum amount of time, or is it gotta be a map? How's that deadline work with bringing that group together?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, once the charter commission is appointed, they have to bring the proposed charter back to the full board within a year. So there's no minimum that they have to deliberate on it. Once it's brought to the commission, it has to be put to a vote by the electors no less than 60 days from when it was submitted to the board, but no more than 2 years. So you'd have to wait 60 days after it's submitted to you before it could be placed on the ballot.
So let me just play this up. So it's November 16th. We have 2 meetings in December. So let's say we have a discussion between now and when's our first meeting in December?
6th.
The 6th of December. So we get a group together by December 6th. And we come up with names, December 6th or whenever. And those individuals are approached. I realize Christmas is coming and people are gonna be gone and it's a holiday season, I realize that. But, if we were approaching those individuals, we have them we had gotten their commitments by the end of December or whatever. And you have a meeting in January, maybe a couple of meetings in January, you talk about the charter. If it's possible to have those meetings held January, February, March, April, May. If you ask that group, do you think it's possible to have some kind of a charter document by March 15th? Which is 2.5 months. Then that charter is put together, they bring it to the commission, let's say the 2nd meeting in March. I'm just playing this out. You still could have it ready to go or have it submitted. It could meet the ballot obligations of being on the ballot. It could meet the minimum of, once they bring it to the commission, they have to have 40 days, 60 days, 2 months. Is it even possible? Is it possible? I'm just asking. Because if somebody approached me to be on a group, I don't wanna be on the group for the next 2 years. But if somebody approached me and said, this is gonna take a lot of commitment, you may have to meet a couple of hours, 2 or 3 or whatever times, and then deal with the whole information being turned out. I don't feel that it's not being, it's that we're not prepared. I think that we're being proactive in moving forward. Is it a fast timeline? Yeah, it could be, but is that a bad thing?
It is a bad thing if we lose, because there will be no second vote. And so that's why I think we want to do it professionally, not just expeditiously. That's my vote.
Why do we say there's no second vote?
Because you're gonna be voting on the very same issue. You're not gonna be able to change it, like the school bond issue, they reduced the amount of money that was being asked. This would be the same charter you're voting on again. So you'd just be pushing it back out there. And I don't see the people that we're gonna ask to help us on it, I don't see them jumping back in a second time right away. They'll commit for the first time, but not for a second.
So these individuals that are on the committee that is appointed, they're compensated, right? We pay them, right?
Members of the commission, yes, it would be up to this board to decide their compensation, their compensation. It says that it's up to this board to set the rate of compensation and reimbursement.
So if we're setting or we're compensating them, I mean, don't we have a right to say within this time frame, this is what we want or what we need to have done?
I don't think
Well, I
that's,
mean,
I
like,
don't
you
think
can
that's,
charge
the-
it
I don't think
together, I
that's the law.
No, I know, but I mean, the expectation and it's like somebody says, I mean, they don't wanna sit on this for 2 years or a year or whatever. I mean, it's like, I think most people, if they agree to do it, are gonna be on board and it's like, let's do it.
Well, okay, let's say they do it, and they do it expeditiously in 60 days, that's January, February, that'd be the 1st of March. Before we even get a look at it or decide what we're doing. And your vote is 3 months off,
When would we have to put on the ballot, Debbie?
April.
Is it
64 days prior to the election. 64 days,
64 days?
and I would need to know that's gonna be on the ballot.
And that would be what? Would that be April?
April.
No, the
Right around the 1st of April.
election's in June, so.
It's the second Tuesday in June, June 14th, I think. So 64 days prior to that.
March 14th, April 14th, around April 10th, whatever, is when it would have to be able to go to the ballot.
And I'm also thinking like you that, I mean, there are charters out there and they're gonna use those.
Well,
I mean, why
sure.
rewrite
reinvent
something
that wheel,
that's
no.
already written? They might incorporate
Especially with what's it
pull
passed
from
and some of
different
the other
ones, but I mean, ours, I think, is gonna be quite simple because we're really doing it for one reason only.
Well, and I really disagree that, just because we're looking at a shortened timeline, that it's any less professional than it would be if we had a lengthened timeline. I think it depends upon the group of individuals that come forward. I don't think this is something that we have to mull over, for a long period of time. I just really feel that if we put, I think it would be professional. Does it take some time for people to become educated? Yes, I don't disagree with that. But just based on what you're saying about explaining things to some people, during a primary election, just give me a general idea. You don't have to go back and check anything. Just a general idea of what usually the number of votes are.
10,000.
10,000 as compared to
30,000.
yeah. So, and you're right about individuals that come to a primary are usually more informed. They make an effort to get there instead of feeling like, sometimes people get out and vote and they hear a lot of information during a major election. But I don't have that sense that it's going to be any less professional if it's a shortened timeline. I don't think that, our population is, they're going to feel any less informed if we get the information out methodically. I just really have a feeling that the time now is right. And I do disagree with you, and you and I both philosophically disagree with that, and I respect your opinion. But I just feel that we need to get this out, and we need to, yes, and you know what? We could move forward right now with every intention that we're gonna meet whatever deadlines that come up. And then if we don't meet those deadlines and we have to look at lengthening it to another timeline, I'm okay with that. I mean, at least I guess my thought process is, can't we try to do as best as we possibly can? And if we don't meet whatever deadline we run into, you know what, we tried, and then I guess we have to move on to the next election, whether it's, you know, a major election or not. But I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel.
You know, I think before we do any of that, that we have to educate ourselves as to how to proceed on this. And part of that was the meeting we were gonna have this morning. That's gonna be put off for probably a couple of weeks. Mr. Ford has talked to the administrator of Cass County, who is willing to have him come down and meet with him and tell him what you need to do ahead of time to get ahead of this. And they passed theirs with, I wanna say 85%. It was a tremendous number. But they took their time and they did it right. So
Did they do this during a primary, or do you know what the timeframe?
I don't know, but I'd be willing to bet huge money was on a primary.
Primary seems to be the right time, either this one or the not next one down the line, but.
Well, and then I always think too, I mean, we've got 3 commissioners that are up for election. Not sure who's all gonna run or who isn't, but you know, if we don't get this done or started, you know, and going in the right direction, then it's up to whoever comes on, or the new persons, or whatever.
That's what I used to say.
Yeah, you know, and so, you know, I think it behooves us. I mean, we've known about this for a long time, and we can't. I mean, you know, and yes, we're all busy, but you know what? We're getting paid a salary, and we have an obligation to the county and to the people of our community. And so sometimes you have to put some things on hold to do your job, you know, and again, I think with compensating the individuals that will be on this team, you know, and giving them a time frame, it'll get done.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, just wondering, can the commission give the charter committee guidelines, what they want in the charter? Because otherwise, if the charter committee is just drafting a charter randomly and what they think is best, you may not agree. And you would say, I don't want this. But if you give direction to the charter committee and how to draft it or what they would like included in it, I think the process would go much faster because you get back what you would want to see.
We have to approve the charter, though.
You have to approve the charter, so I guess there's really no sense in just saying, well, just do a charter. If the idea is for a sales tax, you want that included in there. If the
It's
idea,
the only thing we want in there.
I think
That's
that's
the only thing we want in there.
But we
good
also
selling
want
point.
to specify what the sales tax is for.
what it's for.
Yeah.
And then the fact
In general terms, not just
we
specific.
would be allowed to draft the charter to include something on the mill levy, but I don't think we should give us any more authority than we have now, because I think that's a key selling point.
You know, I think Mr. Falk was correct, you know, talking about that administrator from Cass. They've already invented the wheel. They already had a charter. Let's look at what they got to say, how they did it, and then move on from there.
Let's see if Mr. Ford can get a hold of him or meet with him before our next meeting.
Or call a special meeting on whatever is
Sure.
on
Well,
his
2 weeks,
schedule.
2 weeks, you have to give them 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Mr. Ford and this person.
Next,
That's kind of what I'm saying, is people aren't gonna just drop everything to do this.
Well, and
And it's at his convenience.
Nobody would start on it until January first, but if we give some direction on the charter, we might get it back in middle of February, instead of
Yes.
March.
Mhm.
We could tr- I'm kind of game for trying to get it done that way. But we have to think about, some of these things require people going out and speaking at this group and that group all over the place. And we have to really mobilize that.
And whereas, the message has to be simple to everyone, instead of, getting information or, once the charter is being talked about and what the commission would like to see in the charter, obviously, we do know, preemptively that, the Economic Development Commission would be supportive. The city council has kind of said they would be supportive, the chamber, so we're not having to get some buy-in from individuals that maybe weren't proactive or weren't supported in the past. So we already know that we do have some organizations. Are they the majority of the voters? No. But do they have an impact on individuals that are parts of their group or on their boards and different committees? Yes. I just, the other thing that we talked about was the numbers, and Keely, if you could refresh my memory, how many people can we have on a home rule charter committee?
5 minimum.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that's correct, a minimum of 5, but there's no maximum.
Okay. Because if that's one of the things that between now and the point when we meet with the Cass County representative, if somebody, Diane, I think you said I already have a couple in mind. Commissioner Ross, you said the same thing. At least we can do some footwork prior to when we can have some type of a meeting or call a special meeting to be visiting with that individual who has a lot of experience with home rule charter and start thinking about individuals that we think that would be beneficial in being on this committee. I would be okay with that. And if we could do not, if it were a possibility to call a special committee meeting as the chair, well, until December 7th, I would be more than supportive in asking to call a special meeting of the commission if that individual was available prior to December 7th. And I know we've got Thanksgiving, but eat the bird on Thursday, Thanksgiving, and
Well, you're right,
move on.
but you also have to count on everybody else agreeing to that, and they're
I know.
not necessarily.
Right.
I can't see them starting until 10th of January.
Right, and I don't disagree with that.
And this administrator in Cass County, he might have ideas as to who they pick to be on.
Sure.
And so I don't know that we should even be throwing names out yet.
No,
Until
but thinking
Mr.
about.
Ford meets with him and gets all this lined up. And maybe as early as the next county commission meeting, we could have an administrative services meeting and Mr. Ford could present at that time what information he has received from that administrator.
Yeah, okay, let's have, and we'll try to meet with the other gentleman that we got down here today. And I'll see if we can have Ford meet, get a hold of the Cass County person.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, if you have some names, maybe we could give them to Mr. Ford, so he can kind of get a list. And, I think at one time we talked more is better, but probably not in this case because more will take longer.
Yeah.
Because people, you try, just 5 of us trying to get a schedule when we can all come together is hard. If you have 10, it's never gonna happen. So, 5 to 7 maybe would be the most. So let's see if we can't get that done. And then meet. When is that zone board meeting?
It's the second
Okay.
Tuesday, or the second meeting of the month, we have it prior to the commission meeting.
So let's meet at, what, 2:30 on the 7th? Actually, I made a mistake, it's the 7th, it's Tuesday. Is that enough time, 2:30? Gives us an hour and a half.
I think it's
We might as well, but we haven't started a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock in what? 8 months?
Well, you know, as Diane said, we get, we do represent our constituents. Okay, thank you, sir, very much.
Okay, and if there's nothing else, anybody have, we have to stick on this. If we have nothing else, we can adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay? We're adjourned.
Thank you, sir, very much.